Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Likon Obanjo. Here are some stories making the rounds beyond the continent. U.S. President Donald Trump has criticized Hamas after indirect talks between Israel and Hamas collapsed. Trump stated that Hamas didn't seem interested in a ceasefire deal, suggesting they prefer to die rather than negotiate. The U.S. and Israel had been working on securing a ceasefire and the release of hostages, but talks broke down. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu adds that the Israeli community still seeks a deal.
Gaza, they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out in terms of negotiating. It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job. They really, they asked for things. Don't forget, we got a lot of hostages out. So now we're down to the final hostages, and they know what happens after you get the final hostages. And basically, because of that, they really didn't want to make a deal. I saw that. So they pulled out, and they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get rid of it.
French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will formally recognize Palestine as a sovereign state during the United Nations General Assembly in September. Macron framed the move as consistent with France's historic commitment to a two-state solution, urging Gaza ceasefire, hostages release, and demilitarization of Hamas. While Macron says the decision is essential for lasting peace in the Middle East, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio strongly condemned the decision, calling it reckless. We also tell you that Parisians have reacted to Emmanuel Macron's announcement that he will formally recognize the state of Palestine at the United Nations General Assembly in New York in September. France on Friday defended its decision to recognize Palestinian statehood amid domestic and international criticism, including against the charge that the move plays into the hands of militant group Hamas. Now, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Friday slammed the international community for turning a blind eye to the suffering of Palestinians starving in the Gaza Strip, calling it a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience. Aid groups have warned of surging numbers of malnourished children in war-ravaged Gaza, which Israel placed under an aid blockade in March amid its ongoing war with Hamas. That blockade was partially eased 2 months later. The trickle of aid since then has been controlled by the Israeli and U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, replacing the long-standing UN-led distribution system.
To explain the level of indifference and inaction we see by too many in the international community, the lack of compassion, the lack of truth, the lack of humanity. And this is not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience. We will continue to speak out at every opportunity, but words don't feed hungry children.
Now we're joined by Dr. Benjamin Aki, a geopolitical analyst, and he joins us from New York, United States. Thank you so much, Dr. Aki, for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for the invitation, and thanks greetings to you.
Of course. So let's start from that video excerpt by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres describing Israel's blockade of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip as being reckless and lawless and not being humane. Now, don't you think that Israel is even overdoing it at this point?
I think that the Secretary General of the United Nations expresses the helplessness of the United Nations in this conflict. But if you look at what Israel is doing, it seems to be consistent with their own plan for the region. And it is, we should keep in mind that the International Court of Justice has already ruled on this matter, asking them to stop the activities that are being carried out there. But they have a completely different goal So from the perspective of Israel, their actions are aligned with their goal for the region. But from the perspective of the United Nations, it is a cry of helplessness. And for the rest of the world, it's an indictment against our indifference to the situation in Gaza. It doesn't make sense that we're in the 21st century and we see such famine and starvation being used as a weapon of war.
Yeah, so what then is Israel's goal for the region that even leads to intentional starvation and hunger being perpetrated against the Palestinians?
Well, they were not quite admitted, but if you analyze the situation historically, you will see that there are two groups in this area. There are the Israeli and then there are the Palestinian. And from the very beginning, they understood that this place is for one group only. So the Palestinians fought against the creation of the state of Israel up to a point where they realized that that mission could not be accomplished. We can say now that the Palestinians have come to terms with the fact that there is going to be a state of Israel in the region for a long time. But on the other hand, the nationalists, the Israeli nationalists, also understood that we're displacing these people. We're taking away their land, we're taking away their houses, we're driving them out from places where their ancestors were buried. It's impossible that we can live alongside with them peacefully. There is only one state that can exist here, and therefore we should work towards the condition of creating that. So it seems to me that if you analyze the politics of Mr. Netanyahu, and it's not just Mr. Netanyahu, some people make the mistake of just pinning this on Mr. Netanyahu as his politics. It is basically the right wing in Israel which now dominates the narrative about what the long-term solution should be. Ideally, there should be one Jewish state. If you listen to the former U.S. ambassador under Donald Trump to the area, he himself is a Zionist. He paints the picture very well that there will be one Jewish state from the West Bank to the sea. And the way to realize that without appearing hypocritical is, first of all, according to, I'm taking the former ambassador of the United Nations to be speaking openly about what is the hidden policy of Israel. It would be a situation where the Palestinians are allowed to remain in the area. They will have no right to vote, but they can have their other rights protected. And in order not to face the challenge that such an undemocratic arrangement would bring, it is good to encourage the Palestinians to leave the area. And if you cannot encourage them peacefully, you can encourage them by hardship. And so it seems now that even some of the right-wing groups in Israel that are advocating for resettlement of Gaza, their intention is to create horrible conditions in Gaza that will cause the people to flee for their lives. And once they have left the area, then nationalists can now come in and start building settlement just like they are doing in the West Bank. So it seems to me that's the long-term goal, because if you create one Jewish state from the West Bank to the sea, you have the difficulty that within a couple of years, the majority in the area will be Palestinians. So if you have a democratic one state, then it will be very difficult to imagine a case where the majority in government will be Jewish. So in order to create a condition, you have to encourage as many Palestinians as possible to leave the area. And I think the Palestinians understand that as well, and that's why they are not leaving, they are suffering, and they say we're going to die in our homes.
So now that France, of course, that is the first G7 nation to publicly support the calls for a Palestinian state, do you think that might pull a little bit of weight from other countries sympathetic to Gaza's plight, probably to see that a two-party state, so to speak, is established in that area?
I'm a Cameroonian, and generally we don't have very positive views about France. But on this particular one, I would like to congratulate the President of France. He has done a very, very courageous move to bring France in line with the moral conscience of the world. I think this is a significant development. it's a significant development that shows that almost all the G7 countries and all the Western countries, on paper, they tell you that we're committed to a two-state solution. But the right wing, which controls the politics of Israel, are only using that two-state solution to get along with Western states. They don't believe in it. And therefore, the war that is going on in Gaza, the behavior of the current Prime Minister, who is very bold about asserting that rejection of the Palestinian state, I think that is waking up the Western countries to see their hypocrisy, and also to see that if you go along with Israel, it's not even in the interest of Israel to object to Palestinian statehood. So in the long term, if you like to provide for the security of the people of Israel, and if you like to alleviate the suffering of the people of Palestine, you have to go ahead and assert the right of the Palestinians to have a state of their own. This is the dictate of international law. It cannot be left to the occupier to make that concession, which is what the Western states have been doing so far. So France has taken a very bold step, and I would like to congratulate the French people for making that move. It is significant. So while Israel thinks that they are winning, their victory has actually opened the eyes of the world to see that if we do not change our ways, we would be accomplices to the worst atrocities in the 21st century, and we will not be helping the state of Israel as well as the state of Palestine.
So just to wrap things up, I mean, you talked about hypocrisy there. We know that Israel has allies, most notably the West that you mentioned, and both have immediately responded by rejecting France's recommendation. Now, a lot of people are asking the question that if these two-party states, so to speak, restores peace, why would they not agree to it? Even with Israel's Prime Minister coming out to say that a Palestinian state would actually be tantamount to having some sort of the annihilation of the Israeli state. Some people even categorize that as propaganda too. How do you see it?
Well, if one is committed to the vision that Israel has given itself, the right wing in Israel, then one has to react in the way that the government of Israel is reacting. But it is their right to do so. The rest of the world is not compelled to go along with that narrative. In fact, it is not the case. They are doing so because of the veto power of the United States in the UN Security Council. Because right now, over 70% of the nations of the world recognize the state of Palestine, and they strongly assert the need for a two-state solution. So the state of Israel will characterize everything that is said to criticize their action as anti-Semitic. They will characterize any concession or any realization that we need to move actively to assert international law that the Palestinians have a right to a state. It cannot be the result of a settlement by the occupier conceding to the occupied. It must be the international law that is asserting itself. Because if you took this matter to vote in Israel, they have the sense that we have the backing of the United States, and therefore we can treat Palestine as a conquered territory. And actually, these are words they use in the political discourse in Israel. They use, we have conquered these territories, and they are now, we have conquered Judea and Samaria. This is the language that is used. So it's their right to do so. It is not morally acceptable for the rest of the world to go along with that narrative. International law must be asserted to say that the Palestinians have a right to a state, and that must be imposed from outside. That's the only way to bring peace to the region. So the United States position that this should be a negotiated solution is tantamount to saying that we will go along with the vision of Israel of having one Jewish state from west of the River Jordan to the sea. So this is not possible. It's not in the interest of Israel. It's not in the interest of Palestine. Justice requires a two-state solution, and France has taken a bold step.
Okay.
I expect to see other countries like the UK, Canada, and Japan follow along. The US, Germany, and the US may be the last countries in this G7 to follow the dictate of reason.
Okay, Dr. Benjamin Aki, geopolitical analyst, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us on this discourse. We appreciate that. We take a break now, and when we return, 130,000 civilians evacuated as Thailand downgrades diplomatic ties with Cambodia in major border row. We'll tell you more in a short while. Do stay with us. We now tell you that U.S. President Donald Trump departed for Scotland on Friday for a mix of diplomacy, business and leisure as a huge UK security operation swung into place amid planned protests near his family-owned golf resorts. The president, whose mother was born in Scotland, is expected to split his time between two seaside golf courses bearing his name in Turnberry on the southwestern coast and Aberdeen in the northeast. The White House said that Air Force One was due to arrive around 8:20 p.m. local time with the president and White House staff, and Trump has no public events scheduled for Saturday or Sunday. However, he is due to meet with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer during the trip. Away from that, France's highest court has annulled a French arrest warrant against Syria's ex-president Bashar al-Assad issued before his ouster over 2013 deadly chemical attacks. The Court of Cassation ruled there were no exceptions to presidential immunity, even for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. But its presiding judge, Christophe Soulard, added that Assad was no longer president after an Islamist-led group toppled him in December. New arrest warrants can have been or can be issued against him, and as such, the investigation into the case could continue.
Casse l'arrêt de la Chambre de l'instruction qui a considéré que le mandat d'arrêt délivré alors que M. al-Assad était encore chef d'État en exercice était régulier. Elle annule le mandat d'arrêt. Cependant, elle précise que depuis que M. Bachar al-Assad n'exerce plus ses fonctions, de nouveaux mandats d'arrêt ont pu ou pourront être délivrés à son encontre pour des faits susceptibles de constituer des crimes de guerre ou des crimes contre l'humanité.
In Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has sharply criticized his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro, for seeking external intervention in his ongoing trial, accusing him of lacking courage and character. Speaking at an event in Minas Gerais, Lula condemned Bolsonaro's decision to send his son, a general and congressman, to Washington to ask then U.S. President Donald Trump to intervene in the legal proceedings against him. Lula called this move a disgrace and a sign of Bolsonaro's poor character. Trump has framed the trial as a witch hunt against his ally, who faces charges related to an alleged coup attempt to overturn Lula's presidency following the 2022 elections. Thai officials announced that over 130,000 civilians have been evacuated from provinces bordering Cambodia amid ongoing deadly clashes between the two countries. Rear Admiral Surasan Kungsiri, speaking from Bangkok on Friday, confirmed that fighting persists, with Cambodian forces continuing to deploy long-range weapons in the conflict. The cross-border violence has forced mass evacuations in multiple areas and Thai provinces as residents seek safety.
As of July 25th, 2025, at 0900 hours, the latest figures of casualties are as follows. On the civilians, the affected civilians who passed away as a result of the fighting was 14. The severely injured casualty was 7, moderately injured 13, slightly injured 11.
Meanwhile, Thailand says it is open to Malaysia mediating an effort to find a negotiated solution to its bloody conflict with Cambodia. The two neighbors are locked in the most intense fighting in more than a decade, battling with artillery and ground troops over sections of their disputed 800-kilometer, that's about 500-mile border, And Thai Foreign Ministry spokesman Nikondejig Balankura said Bangkok was open to talks, possibly aided by Malaysia.
Turn into a war would be that the Cambodian side provokes us and attacks deeper into the Thailand's territory, not limited to just the border area. And of course, if civilians are targets, then the situation could escalate into a full-fledged war. We are ready to, if Cambodia would like to settle this matter or have a dialogue through diplomatic channel, bilaterally or even through Malaysia, we're ready to do that. But so far we haven't had any response on that. It started so, right? It looks like it started by the two leaders.
Protesters opposed to Taiwan's Kuomintang party gathered in front of the presidential office in the rain to support the call and recall of opposition legislators. They are seeking to unseat 31 KMT lawmakers who they accuse of being pro-China and a threat to national security. The KMT, which advocates closer ties with Beijing, controls parliament with the help of the Taiwan People's Party, and has slammed the recall efforts as undermining the self-ruled island's democracy. The vote on the recall is due to take place on Saturday.
看到说国民党删预算那些的，我觉得有点夸张，有点甚至到他们怎么当上这个工作的程度，然后还有各式各样的，也会有这个也有对我的工作有点影响。 所以就觉得说应该要支持。
我也不算年轻，我是从太阳花世代的时候开始来的。我觉得不希望再一次上卡掉，对，然后希望是今天大家出来的话都可以投同意，不管你是投同意不同意，但是就是要出来投票，因为这个是。
Meanwhile, in India, part of the roof and walls of a government-run school collapsed in the west on Friday, killing at least 7 children and injuring 26 others. The structure collapsed when students were attending their classes early on Friday in Rajasthan State's Jalawar district, around 322 kilometers south of the state capital, Jaipur. Around 60 students, teachers and staff members were in the single-story building when the accident happened, police said. Villagers rushed to the site and rescued many injured children who were taken to medical facilities. That's all on Beyond the Continent. Remember that you can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Watch us live on the different channels: DSTV 422, GoTV 23, StarTimes 274, including our VoTV and YouTube. I am Lekon Obanjo. Many thanks for watching.